Hello everyone, my name is Kimberly, and today I'm presenting a slideshow on the topic of juveniles in detention. I've chosen this topic specifically because I find it really intriguing to look at how many factors come into play for juveniles who offend and how much they can actually improve after being exposed to the justice system. So I decided to provide a structural outline for my slideshow so you can see what I'm going to discuss and how each topic progresses to the next. So to begin my topic, I thought it was beneficial to define how a juvenile offender is actually classified. So as you can read on the slide, an individual can be charged with an offence from the age of 10, and this is called the criminal age of responsibility. A young person is sentenced under the juvenile system until they reach the upper age limit of 17, and that's when they can be tried as adults. The first juvenile justice system was introduced in 1899 to separate adult and juvenile offenders, and this is because the justice system had a goal to divert youth from punishments which were extremely destructive and to provide positive and supportive resources that restored the needs of the juvenile. The justice systems were starting to recognize the underdevelopment of a youth's decision-making abilities in comparison to an adult's. In June of 2018, 980 young people were in youth detention centres in Australia for the involvement and alleged involvement in criminal offences. Between 2014 to 2018, the number of incarcerated juveniles continued to rise from 792 to 985 on the average night. This continued increase should cause society to question, why is this happening and what can be done better to decrease these numbers? In order to understand these rates, it's important to observe what types of crime juveniles commit and the patterns that are influencing them. As the chart below shows, acts intended to cause injury was the highest ranking juvenile offence, followed by illicit drug offences, sexual assault, robbery and extortion, and lastly, unlawful entry with intent. Juveniles are often less experienced at committing offences, which is why they are likely to offend in groups and in public areas. A source I studied while researching for this topic stated that juveniles like to offend in attention-seeking manners, committing offences that are episodic, unplanned, and opportunistic. There are a number of biological, social, and environmental factors that, when intertwined, will increase the risk of juvenile offending. Some that I will discuss now are gender, cultural background, remoteness of location, and socioeconomic status. In 2016 to 17, 91% of young offenders were male. It is suggested that males are socialized differently towards dealing with risk. Males are more often to engage in risk seeking, where women are more likely to learn risk avoidance. Young men also experience pressure to be strong and dominant, and this can cause them to become involved in delinquent behaviours. This next statistic states that 50% of young people incarcerated were of Indigenous background. And this is a huge statistic because Indigenous Australians only make up 5% of the Australian population. This statistic is influenced by a number of factors, including Indigenous views of police, linking back to the stolen generations and British colonisation. Some Indigenous people may not have respect or trust in police and the justice system because of the horrors that they and their family faced. A significant amount of Indigenous people also reside in places which possess a low socioeconomic status. There are several other factors as well influencing Indigenous overrepresentation, including lack of language skills, fetal alcohol syndrome, lower life expectancy rates, disintegration, family breakdown, and lack of accommodation. Young people aged between 10 to 17 from remote areas were 6 times as likely as those from cities to be under community-based supervision or in detention on an average day, while those from very remote areas were 10 times more likely to be under community-based supervision and 9 times as likely to be in detention. On an average day between 2016 to 2017, 38 per 10,000 young people from the lowest socio-economic areas were under supervision or in detention, compared with 5 per 10,000 from higher socioeconomic areas. So now I'm going to identify some of the reasons that juveniles offend, and I'll be looking at 3 topics in particular, which include intellectual disability and mental illness, the cycle of crime, and risk-taking or peer pressure. According to research, language and reading deficits are linked to drug use, aggression, and violence when young people who struggle in education believe that they are labelled and marginalised as failures. This belief of failure in school can result in a young person seeking acceptance elsewhere, completely rejecting academic achievements as a legitimate goal. Juveniles are in a state of development and learning, and they retain information based on their experiences and what they observe. Many incarcerated juveniles have experienced abuse in one form or another, and these become learned behaviours. As the chart displays, 81% of young female offenders have previously experienced abuse, demonstrating that victims will often become perpetrators. Although less than female offenders, more than 50% of male offenders had previously experienced abuse, and the type of abuse was identified as severe. Adolescence is a time in which individuals experience complex physiological, psychological, and social changes, and this is how young people often become involved with risk-taking exploration behaviours. Young people have an underdeveloped response inhibition, calibration of risks and rewards, and ability to regulate emotions. As well as this, young people can be predisposed to offending due to issues with mental health and alcohol or drug use, in combination with peer pressure. I found this quote that I thought was really helpful that says, "The influence of peers and their acceptance of behaviour is significant, and this relationship is magnified when youth have little interaction with their parents." As I've written in the slide, a child's family is their first form of learning, and they will adapt the behaviours, ideals, and values that their family possess. If a family possesses a history of criminal records and abuse, that is what a child growing in that situation will come to value. A child is around their family the most during development. They will learn how to act because of their family. A child's second form of socialization comes with education. In school, a young person learns to interact and care for others. They develop empathy and respect. It teaches what is appropriate and what is not. And if a young person completely dismisses education as an achievement, then they have no option but to look elsewhere for acceptance and focus. Unfortunately, this is often found in delinquent activities. A child without a strong family tie and education is left wondering where they fit in and looks for places to belong themselves. Community groups educate young people on teamwork and collaboration. They give each individual a place to belong, to develop a sense of identity. Without this sense of self, a young person becomes antisocial, and being antisocial can often lead to other behavioural issues, and even conduct disorder, which is highly common amongst incarcerated juveniles. So now that I've discussed the causes of disadvantage and marginalisation for juveniles in detention, I thought it would be beneficial to address some of the most effective methods for decreasing juvenile offending. The first most important thing to remember is that juveniles respond to rehabilitation rather than harsh punishments. It is often the case that a young person wants to do better, but is unaware of how to start. Providing them with educational programs, sports programs, and opportunities to complete hands-on tasks vastly improves their self-worth and desire to achieve. Young juveniles need support and guidance more than anything. In conclusion, juvenile detention rates are affected by a combination of social, biological, and environmental factors which are often intertwined. Unfortunately, in most cases, it is a mixture of these factors which influence young individuals to be exposed to the justice system at an early age. which demonstrates the importance of providing children with a stable home life, education, and positive exposure to the community. Some of the areas that can be improved in relation to decreasing juvenile offending include counselling with struggling families early, have community programs available for new mums and mums who are struggling, incorporate more community activities for parents and children together to develop positive and trusting relationships. If children don't have parents or adults to confide in, provide them with a mentor, look at bullying programs in schools, have community centres available for children that allow them to participate in sports, music, and community events. Provide more opportunities for police-initiated diversion programs, which steer youth away from exposure to the justice system, and provide them with the opportunities to address factors contributing to their problem behaviours. I hope after listening to my presentation you have gained some knowledge and insight into this topic. The more individuals aware, the more that can be done in response. Thank you.